everyone. So, in today's session, we are going to explore the topics related to file system implementation and specifically allocation methods and free space management related to file system implementation. So, what is the need for allocation methods now? Why we have to concentrate upon allocation methods and where did your allocation methods exactly start from? For example, all of us know like basically we try to store the files in a directory structure. So when we are trying to store all the files in directory structure, the first and foremost thing is we need to utilize the directory space in a very efficient manner. Means which all empty space is available, it has to be utilized appropriately to store the files. And second thing is it is not just about utilizing the disk space to store the file, but also to access the file quickly and efficiently. So three things are involved over here. One, trying to store the files by utilizing the space efficiently in the disk. Second, trying to access all the files in a faster manner. There shouldn't be any delay in the file access operation. And third thing is security. That is only in effective manner, means we shouldn't lose any data related to the files. So with respect to these things, if you see, there are three major methods in order to handle the disk space efficiently and to take care of file storage. There are three methods utilized for the same, like contiguous allocation, linked allocation, and indexed allocation. And each method has its specific advantages and disadvantages. So in this section, we are going to analyze each and every method of storing or rather allocating the disk and storing the file. So what is meant by contiguous allocation, what is meant by linked allocation, and what is meant by indexed allocation. So the first and foremost is contiguous allocation. So when it comes to contiguous allocation, it's quite clear with the name over there. From the terminology only, it's very clear. It's like continuous allocation of a file. So in the disk, we try to seek some location or spaces which is like available as a set of spaces as contiguous blocks. We try to allocate it to a particular file. So what is a major thing over here is the disk addresses are going to be in a linear fashion, one after another. So if we have a particular file, okay, of certain MB, for example, 4 MB size, we try to divide it into blocks, and these blocks we are going to load it into the disk spaces which are available over the disk. So what is the main advantage over here is trying to access the file goes very easy because it is just like a sequential access of a file. And second thing is seeking an exclusive block within a particular file also is very simple and easy. For example, if you have started at a particular location called B in the disk, okay. So obviously the remaining blocks are going to be in locations B plus 1, B plus 2 and goes on till the end of the file for the complete size of the file. And when it comes to your directory entry with respect to the file, it goes like this. So every file has a starting block address in the disk and the complete length of the file. So based on the length of the file, we are going to calculate the block addresses within the disk. So this is how contiguous allocation takes place. And what about the disadvantage? Obviously, to just have a look about the contiguous allocation, it sounds very simple. We just feel like the files can be stored in whichever block space which is free. But as I mentioned in the beginning itself, it is not just the free block space, but we need a contiguous allocation, a continuous allocation of the space. So only if we are able to get a continuous space free for a particular file, we can go for storing the file, which means the file blocks cannot be scattered across the disk. So we need one sector or one complete section of your disk space in order to store the file over there. So that is a major drawback. And second thing, if we see whichever allocation algorithm, like first fit or best fit, whichever we are going to utilize, external fragmentation is not going to be taken care. What is meant by external fragmentation? Lot many disk space is still empty. It is still available, but it is not being utilized appropriately for storing the file. So the major problem over here is until we seek that complete space for storing the file, we cannot go for storing the file. And second thing is external fragmentation is still not handled appropriately. And next, the third important problem is trying to determine how much space is needed for a particular file. Obviously, deciding how much space would be needed for a file is not going to be very easy in the beginning itself, because when a user goes for creating the file, the user cannot have an idea regarding how much space would be needed or what would be the size of the file. So predetermination is comparatively difficult. It's practically not possible. So two things, how they try to handle this problem, two possibilities or two ways which they use to handle this problem is, first thing is trying to predetermine a huge space. Means we are assuming this file might take too much of space and trying to seek a disk space which is of that particular size. So obviously, again, it's not an efficient methodology, because we don't know whether really the file is going to take so much space or not, but we are going to conserve, right? We are going to sort of like block or reserve so much disk space which might not be used efficiently. Second thing is trying to stop the work. Like you started with the file allocation, you assume this would be the space. So in the disk, you have taken a certain space and you have stored the file. But later you get to know the file keeps on growing in size. So what we can do, we have to just stop all over, temporarily try to remove it and again go for finding a new space and allocate that particular file, which is again not that efficient. So this is the third major problem. As I was mentioning till now, the first one is trying to find out the appropriate contiguous blocks. Second one is trying to access in an efficient manner by handling external fragmentation, which is not possible. And the third one is trying to predict the size of the file in the beginning itself, which is again not that practical. Yes, so in order to overcome all these drawbacks, fine, this contiguous allocation, if suppose any operating system is going to utilize this contiguous allocation method, in order to overcome the drawback, fine, what was being carried out is they try to group the spaces, whichever is available in the disk, okay? Those contiguous chunks of spaces, we're trying to group like clusters. So if suppose we have some 5 different groups of spaces in the disk, okay, 5 different disk spaces we have. So what happens is whenever a file is going to request for a space, one particular chunk is going to be allocated for the file. And if needed, okay, like as the file is being used, okay, as its data gets increased, if needed, we can go for taking up the next chunk. So that is going to be called as the extent, okay, and added on space for this current file, which is going to be called as the extent over there. So that is how the contiguous allocation drawbacks are being handled. So blocks of disk space are being grouped together called like chunks, and these chunks are going to be utilized as per the length of the file. As a file grows, if needed, we are going to utilize this chunk of spaces called as extent, and we are going to add it, okay? But again, with respect to this one small problem, as we have seen in paging, we can try to recollect. Since we are allocating the space as chunks, we cannot tell like every chunk is utilized efficiently. So external fragmentation is taken care here, but at the cost of internal fragmentation. So within every chunk, for example, one chunk completely has been allocated for a particular file, okay? Second, we feel like slightly the file is getting increased in size, so we have to extend it. We have to move to the next chunk. But what is a guarantee? The next chunk is going to be again utilized efficiently. So that is the exact place where internal fragmentation comes into picture. So there are chances of internal fragmentation. Yes, so these were all the points related to contiguous allocation of file, disk space for file. Next one is linked allocation. Another approach used for utilizing the disk space efficiently for allocating files in the disk was linked allocation. So in linked allocation, it's very, very simple. Okay, first and foremost thing, what we have to concentrate in linked allocation is we are not going to seek for continuous allocation of free disk space. That is the major advantage over here. We are not going to seek for continuous free space. Rather, whichever space is free in the disk, we are trying to utilize it in order to store the file. So what is happening over here, as I mentioned, the file is going to be divided into blocks, and blocks of the file is going to be stored into whichever space is freely available in the disk. So the next important point we need to be aware of is how are we going to track it when a file is being divided into blocks, and when these blocks are stored in different locations in the disk. Obviously we need some methodology in order to track these bits and pieces or the portions of the files within the disk. So in order to do that, we concentrate on the concept called as link. We try to set pointers. So what is happening over here? For example, this diagrammatic representation will be clear for you. My file, okay, it might start at a particular location. See, for example, it starts at the block 9 in the disk. Okay, so that is my first location. So from there, I'm trying to set a pointer. So in 9, if you see my pointer, it is pointing to the block number 1. Okay, so from there, I move on to the next block. The next block goes on like that. So each and every block is going to be given a particular address, right? And that particular address is going to be stored as a part of that portion of that disk. So block 9 will be continuing at block 16. If you see the diagram over here, okay, it moves till your block 16. From 16 we move to block 1, block 1 to 6, 2, and goes on like this. So every block will be having a pointer, okay, to the next block. So blocks are nothing but the locations where the portions of the files are getting stored. So the pointers are going to be stored with respect to every block, and through these pointers we try to track the complete file. So this is how linked allocation works. So what about the disadvantages? Obviously the advantage is very clear. As I was mentioning from the beginning of linked allocation, advantage is very clear. We are overcoming the drawback of the contiguous allocation, and we need not seek continuous disk space. We can try to avoid external fragmentation. These are all the advantages. But what about the major disadvantage? Obviously the disadvantage over here is going to be every access to a particular pointer. Here we need to give more importance to the pointer. It is not just trying to access a block or a data, rather we are trying to access the pointer. If I have to seek the next block of a particular file, I need to be aware of the pointer. So it's like almost double read now. First, I have to go and read, get an idea about the pointer. Through the pointer, I need to access a particular block where the data is, and then I have to fetch the data. So it is like almost double or triple of the work what normally gets carried out in order to read a particular data from a disk space. So the pointer read access, okay, that accessing for that particular pointer value is time consuming as well as an added on operation for your disk seek. Next important thing is the space needed to store the pointer. See, the pointer itself is nothing but an address. So that address has to be stored with respect to every block over here, which is like along with the data in every portion of the disk, I'm trying to allocate certain space in order to store the pointer value also, which means some overhead is added on in order to the storage over there. Along with the data, it is a pointer space. So it's like a sort of constraint over there. It is not just the data value. Complete disk space is not just utilized for storing the data alone, but rather a portion of it is going to be allocated for the pointer value, which again doesn't sound that efficient over there. It's like managing both the space for the pointer as well as trying to read the pointer value prior to the data value. So these were the major drawbacks or the disadvantages of linked allocation. And one more problem, okay, the last important problem is nothing but reliability, which means here reliability is concerned with respect to the pointer value. We need to check out to what extent the pointer values are not getting lost, to what extent the address stored with respect to every block is going to be secure, so that you don't lose track of the data which is stored in my disk over there. Something goes wrong, okay, some a disk crash has happened, okay, and if you have lost that pointer value, the whole file, it's like we have lost track of the complete data of the file. We are unable to track the file henceforth, through which again indirectly we are going to lose the data. So reliability with respect to the pointer itself is a big concern over here. So these are all the major drawbacks of linked allocation. Yes. So in order to overcome this drawback of storing the pointer along with the block, okay, in order to overcome this problem, they came up with a concept called as a file allocation table. So what happens over here is instead of trying to store the pointer, okay, for every file, for every block of the file within the disk, within a particular section, we try to allocate, okay, one particular portion of the disk space in the beginning itself in for something called as a file allocation table. So the file allocation table is typically similar to the linked list, but exclusively it stores the details related to a particular file, which means this diagram again. We'll just move to the diagrammatic representation. So in the directory entry, if you see, we will have the file name. Okay. And the file name, it starts at this particular block, which is 217 for say. Now, when I go to this file allocation table, that file allocation table exclusively stores all my pointer value. Which means this file which starts at the block 217, okay, the first block is stored in that location, next block continues in 618, again in 618 the next block continues in 339, goes on. So there will be some different identifier or a value which represents the last block over there. Its pointed value will be some -1 or some zero, something like that, a null character, whatever it is. So in this scenario, what happens is the pointer values with respect to a particular file, okay, it is all maintained in a file allocation table. For every file, we are going to maintain this file allocation table, and the first and foremost entry to the file allocation table, its value is going to be stored in the beginning of every directory entry. So this is how they try to overcome the drawbacks of that pointer. The pointer storage space, its reliability, and the access time. All these three things was taken care by the file allocation table. Yes. So the third one, the next allocation type is nothing but the indexed allocation. So as we have seen, the linked allocation, it obviously solves the problem of external fragmentation, okay? And also once we bring the file allocation table into consideration, it's quite easy to handle the pointers. But again, there are some drawbacks with respect to the pointers also over there. With respect to individual files only, we are storing the pointers in the file allocation table. So what happens over here is, if suppose in my file allocation table, I'm getting restricted, means I'm restricting myself with respect to a file. I'm not concentrating like for the whole disk over here. On the other hand, when I try to access a data, okay, from a particular disk, it would always be better for me, right, in order to bring all the pointers together in one single location. So what I can try to do is, I can try to maintain a disk, one complete index, okay, in the disk. I can just try to maintain one complete index which has the collection of all the pointers. So with respect to one file also, I will get all the pointers, and with respect to all the files also, I will be able to get the pointers within this one single location called as the index. So the index block within my disk is going to store all the pointers related to the space, or rather the files which are stored in that particular disk space. For example, in this diagram, if you see the file called G, okay, it is just pointing to the index block 19, which means this 19th block stores all the pointers related to this particular file. So the whole file is divided into blocks, right? And these blocks are stored in whichever space is available in my disk, right? And each and every particular block stored in the disk, it has a particular address, and these addresses are going to be stored in my index block over here. So when I consider this file G, all the details of its respective block where these blocks are stored in the disk, okay, its address, the pointing address, is going to be stored in this index table, which is stored in the block number 19. Similarly, for every particular file, I'll be allocating these index blocks. So it's going to be easy for me to maintain the pointers with respect to the file, as well as to get an idea about the different files stored in my disk space over there. Yes, so this is about indexed allocation. So again, indexed allocation also has certain drawbacks, okay? The first and foremost, if you see, it supports direct access without suffering from external fragmentation. This we are seeing from the beginning. Only contiguous allocation method suffers from external fragmentation. But your linked allocation methods and index, it overcomes the external fragmentation problem. The next one is, it does suffer from wasted space, which means this index block, what I am trying to allocate exclusively for a particular file, and for say I have a file which is of a larger size, I try to divide it into multiple blocks, wherein obviously this index block size itself goes too huge. Okay, so as the index block size increases, again my problem of utilizing the storage space efficiently gets into a question. It's like we have to handle it efficiently. So what is very important over here is how large is my index block going to be? Again, indirectly that is dependent on my file size. I don't know. As my file grows, my index block also will grow. I cannot predetermine it. Similarly, if I try to allocate a huge space for my index block, it is again waste. I'm not utilizing the space efficiently in my disk space for my index block over there, right? So it is not a good approach to allocate a huge space for an index block in the very beginning, and then we get to know only just two, might be only two pointer value was stored. If the file is too small for say, I might have only the value 9 and 16 over here. On the other hand, if the file is too huge, it will be too big, right? Or later it might grow. So it all depends on the file size over there. So predetermining the size of the index block is a quite challenging stuff. So in order to overcome that small issue related to the index allocation, okay, they try to figure out certain mechanisms in order to handle that index block. So there are three ways in which they try to do it. Okay, one is the linked scheme approach, next one is multi-level index approach, and the third one is combined scheme of both. So what is meant by linked scheme now? So with respect to one particular file, okay, we just start with one index block, which is usually present in a single disk block. So we can try to read and write directly from that particular index block. On the other hand, if suppose a file grows in size, right, obviously we try to set a link to this index block itself. Okay, initially we will have one index block. Next, we try to utilize some other empty space in this space for the continuation of the file pointer storage as a second index block. If needed, third index block goes on. So these index blocks can be linked. Which all index blocks belong to a particular file, all the index blocks can be linked together. That is link scheme. Next one is multi-level index scheme. So in multi-level index scheme, what happens is we'll have levels of index, which means, for example, the first and foremost index block can be called as the master block. Okay, that will be pointing to the second level index block, which will be in turn pointing to the third level index block. So the blocks are going to be grouped according to the indexes over here. So based on the size of the file alone, I go for increasing the levels of the index. And combined scheme is trying to get a collection of both. You try to keep the index itself in different locations in the disk, you link it, but within every index we can try to set the levels. If needed alone, I go to the second or third level of the index to seek a particular block. If not, that first level is more than sufficient. So that will be the combined scheme over here. Yes, so till now we have seen about allocation methods. Okay, so the various allocation methods in order to store the files efficiently in any particular disk space. Okay, it's going to be contiguous allocation. As I was mentioning, three things we have seen. One is contiguous allocation, next one is linked allocation, and indexed allocation. So contiguous allocation, we have seen what is meant by contiguous allocation, how files get stored and how are they going to be accessed, and what are the drawbacks, okay, or rather the disadvantages of contiguous allocation. Every particular allocation has 2 to 3 drawbacks which you people have to explain. So these drawbacks, okay, for respective allocation, the drawbacks are being handled with a different approach. It's not like linked allocation is trying to overcome the drawback of contiguous. No, contiguous allocation problem can be overcome by certain methodology. That is what we spoke about, the extent or the chunks over there, right? But the major drawback of one particular allocation, which exclusively I'm mentioning from the beginning, external fragmentation per se, that can be efficiently handled by other allocations. So that was a linked allocation. So that major drawback is overcome in linked allocation as well as indexed allocation. But equally, these allocations also has their own drawbacks. Okay, so every disadvantage we have discussed in detail, and we have seen how each and every allocation works. So this is about your allocation method. the next topic, and of course the last topic of your module 4. So today we are completing, like Professor Ganesh, Professor Manigandan and myself, all of us are completing module 4. Okay, and so the last topic is free space management. So in free space management, if we see, we need to think like a bit out of the box. Like now all this time we were talking about files, how files are implemented, what are the different access rights, how efficiently we can go for storing the files into the disk, right? But now with respect to free space management, it is like thinking the other way around. Already not many spaces are free in the disk. Okay, for say I have so much storage capacity in the disk, not many spaces are free. So how efficiently am I going to utilize these free spaces in the disk? How can we go for keeping track of these free disk spaces, and how can we go for storing the data efficiently in these free spaces? So that is about the free space management. So before going for creating any particular file, okay, the operating system should be in a position to get an idea about which particular space is free, right, in the disk, and where these files can be stored efficiently and retrieved efficiently, of course. And the second thing is not just trying to have an idea about the free space and storing and retaining the file. The next important thing is, once a file has been deleted or removed by the user, it is equally important to see to that that space in the disk is being freed up for the next operation. Means that space shouldn't be having any junk values of the file, or the file some value shouldn't be still remaining in that particular disk space. We have to see to that all the data has been clear, and that portion of the disk, okay, can be utilized for storing the other data or files. So all these constraints put together comes under the topic called as free space management. Yes, so there are different methods again, how we can go for implementing the free space management. The very terminology, if you see from the beginning, I was talking like free space list. We mention it like free space list. It doesn't, by any means, it doesn't get linked to your list concept in data structure and all. Please don't get confused like it's like a list way of storing the file. No, it is just a name given. That's all. So the free space in your disk, okay, it can be managed in three different manners. First one is bit vector approach. Next one is linked list approach. Okay. Third one is grouping, and the fourth one is counting. So these are the four ways in which we can try to utilize the free space, disk free space efficiently. So the first and foremost is bit vector approach. So what we try to do in bit vector approach. So initially, whenever we get to know, okay, the particular space is, any space is free in the disk, or randomly the operating system try to check out which all space is free in the particular disk. So all those details, okay, those free space details, it is going to be stored in the form of a bitmap or a bit vector. So every block's address is going to be stored in the bitmap or bit vector, and each block in the disk space, if it is free, right, it is going to be represented by 1. And if the block is already allocated, the bit is going to be represented by 0. So in that particular bit vector data or the detail, if we find a block value to be 1, we get to know obviously the file can be stored over there. Okay. If not, that particular space cannot be utilized. So here, this is an example we have taken. So suppose we consider a disk where the blocks are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9 goes on until 27. Okay, these are all free blocks, and the rest are all blocks which have been allocated. So this is how the bit map would go. Okay, 0, 1, 2, right? So if you see from 2, it goes on like this. So 2, 3, right? 4, 5, 6, 7 is 0, 0, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 goes on like this. So wherever the bit vector value is 1, that means that particular block is free. So if we concentrate on this bit vector approach, there is one hidden advantage also over here. Obviously, we are able to get an idea about contiguous disk space which is free. For example, if you see the block numbers 2 to 5. Okay, it is available in a contiguous manner. We said get some continuous allocation of space. So if any file is going to fit within this particular space, it's going to be easy for us to fit that particular file over here. We can try to tally the file size and the size in the disk space over here. On the other hand, if we have only small chunks of data to be stored, we can try to utilize some small space over here. Suppose this particular location, these two locations, it is quite smaller in size compared to the other sizes. So easily we can go for storing the data over there. So it gives a visualization about the complete storage space with respect to the disk. So the major advantage, if you consider over here, it's very simple, okay, to store the details related to the disk space. Not only simple in getting an idea, but also about storing the details related to the disk space. So trying to identify the free block space, okay, it's going to be very easy for us because from the beginning till the end, we can try to predict like which particular blocks are free. So suppose if suppose 2, 3, 4, 5 block, okay, it has been utilized for a particular file, immediately this is going to become 0. The bit value changes to 0. So if you see from the beginning, we get to know the next set of blocks which are available are going to be only these, right? So it's very easy to store the details as well as retrieve the information about the free disk space. So this is bit vector approach. Yes. So the next one is linked list approach. So in linked list approach, again, it's very simple and easy. We try to link, okay, all the free spaces, the free disk blocks, whichever is available in order to store the data. We try to link it through the address spaces. We try to set a pointer. So whichever blocks are free, okay, we try to set a pointer in another block. For example, the details again, it is going to be cached in memory. But what happens over here? For example, see here, the block, okay, consider the disk where blocks 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all the free spaces now. What happens is, first and foremost, the first block which is free in the disk is nothing but block 2. So this block 2 will be having the pointer, okay, related to block 3, because as of now the next block which is free is nothing but block 3. Next, third block will be having a pointer related to block 4. 4 will be storing the pointer, that is address of block 5. 5 will be goes on like this, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18. But 18, okay, here over here, 18 will be storing the pointer, or rather the address of the block 25, which means after 18 it is only the 25th block which is free over there in order to be allocated for a particular file. Yes, so this is how it goes. So every particular block will be having, okay, the pointer or the address of the very next block which is free over there. That is the free space linked list approach for free space tracking. So we have something called as a free space list head, which will be pointing to the very first block in the disk which is freely available in order to store the data, which is currently empty in order to store the data. Now that block, that free space list head always points to the very first block. So for example, when we are trying to store the file, okay, if this block 2 has been allocated for say, then obviously the next block which is free is going to be only 3, in which case this free space list head will be pointing to 3 henceforth, right? So from 3, it will be easy to track upon the remaining blocks which is available. So that is the linked list approach in order to utilize a free space in the disk. Yes. Next one is grouping. So grouping is very simple and easy. What we are trying to do here is we are just trying to store, okay, all the free blocks, whichever is available. I just try to group it and just store it in one particular location. All the details I put it like one table in one location, right? And what happens is in that group, okay, if I just check it out over there, every group will be having details about the next set of free blocks in the disk space. So the last block, it always contains the address of the remaining free blocks over there. It's like grouping. For example, as I let us go with this diagram. Okay, yeah, here. For say 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9. If you see, there is some sort of continuity over here, right? Till 13. So what can I do over here is till 13, like 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we can even consider 6, 7 is not there. Fine. So 2, 3, 4, 5 can be one group. Okay. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This can be another group, a contiguous set of free space. So what happens over here is this will be as one group. So this total group of free space, it will be storing the address of the next cluster or the next group of free space. Again, this, the second one will be having the third. What is the third? 17, 18. Thereafter, it comes like 25, 26 goes on like that. So we are going to divide the total space as groups, right? And each group will be having the pointer to the next group of free space. That is a concept behind grouping. And the last one is counting. Yes. So what happens in counting is a sort of count is being set. Each entry in the free space list consists of a disk address and a count. That is a key point over here. So what about the count over here is, it's like, see, suppose a particular space has been utilized, okay, one set of disk space has been utilized, then immediately its count is going to vary over there. This again, diagrammatically, if we go, second and the third block, okay, has been utilized already, then what I do for this particular block, I try to increment the counter. It has been already utilized by a different file. Next, I go for the next particular block. So every particular block, right, it can be like a group or like individual block, but we try to set a counter, and this counter gives a better accessibility when we go for removing the file. If suppose a file has been deleted, okay, obviously the counter has to be set back to 0. When the counter is set back to 0, we get a clear idea about that space is totally empty. There are no more files or data related to that particular storage space. It's totally void of data, and it can be utilized for the next data storage. So that is a major advantage with respect to counter. The moment the counter gets to 0, we get to know the space is free and it can be utilized for the next storage. So this is with respect to grouping and counting. Yes, so these are the different ways in which we can go for implementing the free space list. As I told, the second topic is free space management. So whatever space is available in the disk, okay, the free space has to be utilized efficiently for storing the data. So in order to do that, three different or four different approaches has been utilized by the operating system to have a track upon the various disk spaces. So first one is a bit vector approach, next one linked list approach, next is grouping, and the last one is counting. A student.